June 6th, 1944, does not start with a siren for Helen. It starts with a radio. Her father wakes her before dawn, not by shouting, but by turning the volume up one notch. A tired voice talks about ships, beaches, code names. Normandy. Helen is old enough now to know that means other people's children are learning what it feels like when the sky really does fall on your street. She walks to the window. Under the apple tree, their steel hut sits exactly where it always sits. The door is shut. The panels are streaked from old rain. It looks completely ordinary. For a girl who once ran out of a flooding wooden box in the middle of a false alarm, ordinary is not boring. It is priceless. Her little brother pads into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Do we need to go in?" he asks. "Not today," her father answers. He says it slowly, like the words are heavy. For years, every unexpected noise meant maybe. Today, for the first time, the biggest noise is coming from a place on the map they will never see. On the other side of the country, Thomas hears about the landings through an open garage door. A neighbor is shouting to anyone who will listen that our boys are on the French coast. The radio in the living room is too crowded with adults, so Thomas drifts to the place that has mattered most in his own war. The steel curve in the garage. Dust has gathered along the base where the last storm pushed water up and the panels sent it back. The closet in the hallway is still full of old rations and the metal bucket, but they have not trained there in months. It already feels like a museum, to a time when fear was less organized. His father stands beside him. "Big day," he says, nodding toward the street, toward Europe, toward everything that is happening far away. Thomas nods back. He's thinking about something smaller. The last real test their neighborhood had. It was not an invasion. It was a moment when nobody could prove the sky was empty. 2 weeks earlier, the warning had come in the most dangerous form. Not an explosion, a sentence. A radio interruption that did not say drill. Unidentified contact. Offshore. Investigating. Nothing confirmed. Nothing denied. On Helen Street, windows lit up one by one, as if the whole neighborhood had the same dream and woke at the same time. A dog barked until someone yelled. Then even the dog went quiet. The siren started and did not stop when everyone's nerves begged them to. Down the street, wardens in helmets banged on doors. Lights snapped out. Somewhere in the dark, a car hit a tree because the driver was watching the sky instead of the road. Helen's father did not wait for the word attack. He had learned what waiting feels like when water is creeping across a shelter floor. "Masks," he said. "Door. Now." They ran across the yard with shoes half on, the grass wet and cold. The hut waited under the apple tree like a thing that did not know why humans needed it so badly. Inside, the steel smelled clean, not like dirt and rot, not like swollen wood, like something built to be tested and still stand. Her father shut the door and set the timer. The siren outside rose and fell. 10 minutes, 20, 30. Long enough for Helen's thoughts to stop behaving. The old shelter came back in her head in pieces. The wet rung, her brother slipping, her father yanking him up by the arms, the smell of mold that never left the yard, the idea that a place can be built for safety and still become a trap. Her brother whispered, the wooden one would be full by now. Her mother shushed him, but everyone heard the memory. They waited. The steel did nothing dramatic. It did not glow with heroism. It just held. No leaks, no sagging roof, no creeping water. Only a low hum when the wind hit the panels, like the structure was taking the force and refusing to translate it into panic. When the all clear finally sounded, her father did not yell in relief or announce that they were safe forever. He opened the door, looked at the dry floor, and let out a breath that sounded more like exhaustion than victory. Later, the papers called it an overcautious response to an unidentified contact. For Helen, it was something else. Proof that all the nights of practice and all the money spent on steel had bought them not invincibility, but margin. Enough margin that one bad call did not have to turn into a tragedy. In Los Angeles, that same alert arrived like a match dropped into weather. The radio said offshore contact. Then the storm hit hard enough to make the eaves scream. Then the power died. The sirens tangled with thunder so tightly that Thomas could not tell which sound belonged to war and which belonged to the sky. Closet or garage, his father said. It was not really a question. They chose steel. All 5 of them crowded into the curved room as the storm threw itself at the house. Rain hammered on shingles, then changed tone as it hit the metal skin overhead. Deeper, steadier, like the world had been forced into a lower voice. Water snaked under the garage door and stopped at the first rib. Inside the curve, the air stayed dry. Thomas's little sister started to panic halfway through the alert, convinced this was the night the roof would finally crack. Thomas did the only thing he could think of. He counted, out loud, not seconds to the all clear. Steps in the drills they had practiced. Door, bench, mask, timer. He was not calming her with heroism. He was giving her something the closet never gave them. Space. By the time the sirens cut off, she was still scared, but she had not bolted for the door or clawed at the walls. The next day, they learned it had been a radar ghost and a nervous officer. The city shrugged. Families did not. Kids like Helen and Thomas filed that night away in the same drawer as Pearl Harbor and the first gas mask drill. Not because anyone died, but because it was the first time their country's new habits were tested by real uncertainty and did not crack. By the summer of 1944, millions of American children carry scars from the home front that do not show in photographs. Helen still flinches at certain engine sounds. Thomas still keeps his mask closer to his bed than he needs to. Jimmy in Portland can put a mask on in the dark in under 15 seconds and hates that he knows that number. Margaret in Chicago still tenses when a teacher walks past her desk, even in peacetime. But there is a difference between brittle and hardened. The brittle part was the first phase, when flooded holes, bad closets, and untested plans taught kids that adults could build traps by mistake. The hardened part came later, when people like Otto designed things that were meant to break in tests so they would not break over children's heads. D-Day is the poster date for that shift. While men their father's age are fighting for yards of sand and ocean away, American kids are living with a different front line. Not beaches, sirens, timers, doors that have to open, and shelters that have to deserve their names. Years later, when those children are grown, they will remember the headlines and maps. They will also remember smaller things, the hum of rain on a steel roof that does not give, the way a siren eventually starts to sound like a test more often than a death sentence, the strange, guilty relief of realizing that the war came to their radios and their routines, but never to their street in the way it came to other people's. Pearl Harbor proved that the sky could reach into an American bedroom. Everything that followed, from flooded holes to steel huts, was the country's clumsy, painful attempt to build margin. Helen stands under the apple tree later and rests her hand on the rib. The metal is cool, real, unromantic. It does not promise anything. It only holds. And she thinks, with a clarity that scares her more than the siren ever did. If this fails, there's nowhere left to hide. This isn't a video about war. This is about the moment parents quietly admitted to themselves, if this steel box doesn't save us, there's nowhere left to hide. Watch till the end, drop a comment about your strongest childhood fear, and hit like and subscribe so this story reaches people who still carry their own shelters inside.